Spent. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
We are going back to an episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Thank you, everybody, for joining back in. We obviously are coming off a decently long break with the holidays. Got to see a lot of family. Really excited about that. Had a good time. But we are back. And it's the NFL playoffs. What better time of the year to come back for? Let's get started. When I was growing up, upset stories were magical. They were literally called stories. Let me tell you about this magical adventure this team went on. For my specific age group, growing up, you always heard about teams like the 69 Mets, how improbable of a run it was. If you want to go to the 2008 Tampa Bay Rays, their first year being over 500, making it all the way to the World Series. We're going to have Tony on here later, a team like the 2012 Baltimore Ravens. We used to always talk about these teams. It was a story. There was an art form to this. It was fun. It was exciting. The team no one believed in. Now, due to the internet, Twitter, social media, we don't really enjoy upset stories anymore. The NFL playoffs are about to start, and there's a bunch of upsets that are on the potential. Packers going to the Eagles, Broncos going to the Bills, and whoever plays the Chiefs. A lot of potentials for upsets. And those should be celebrated and enjoyed and should be teams that we talk about forever. But instead, we've gone the opposite. The way we discuss upsets now are not, wow, how incredible of a run or how incredible of a team. It's, we just want to put our favorite athletes in McDonald's outfits and Best Buy uniforms and say, wow, this is how they act when they're in the playoffs. We want to put someone that they look alike and say, man, when I bet U.S. currency on him, this is who he turns into. We want everyone to look like Drewski. That's what we want to do. You want to put Photoshop Drewski in your favorite team or player's jersey. We don't celebrate these great underdog teams anymore. We just shame the team that lost. And why? Do you know how many more interesting storylines there are in uplifting some of these teams that no one has real expectations, no one believes in, these magical stories that could occur? We have 2 rookie quarterbacks in the playoffs. 2. Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix. What if either of them win? I think Jaden Daniels, it's more likely he's playing the Bucs. I think people think slightly less of that Bucs team versus the Broncos and Bo Nix, they're playing the Bills. But what if, just hear me out here, and I'm not trying to just be a fan, but just hear me out. What if Bo Nix and the Broncos beat the Bills? You're not going to hear people come on TV or go on sports radio and say, man, did you see that, what Sean Payton's doing, that game plan, that scheme, all the dead cap money they have from Russell Wilson. Look how they rebuilt all this stuff in this last 24 months. Look at how great this looks. Let's give credit to the receivers no one's talking about. Marvin Mims, even though he's a Pro Bowler. Let's give credit to Devon Vele as a rookie who's growing into his own. Cortland Sutton, who's proven he's still a number 1 wide receiver. Bo Nix, the 6th quarterback drafted, making his all the way and beating Josh Allen, the guy who most people believe is going to be the MVP of the National Football League. No, we're going to say Josh Allen when it's a serious moment and you're going to Photoshop a celebrity on him. Doug McDermott. I can't even get into Doug McDermott memes on a YouTube video. I'll be demonetized. We're just going to shame and we're going to put down the team that loses to the point of we don't even enjoy the actual game. What if Jaden Daniels goes on a run when no one expects him to? They beat the Bucs, and then let's say they beat obviously one of the higher seeds. If they're the 6 seed remaining, they'd get to play the Lions. What if Jaden Daniels, as a rookie, beats the 1 seed Detroit Lions? We're not going to sit here, and people aren't going to go on sports radio and say, wow, Jada Daniels, what a hell of a season. Oh my gosh, this is like RG3 2.0, but it's even better. No, we're going to laugh at Jared Goff and make fun of Dan Campbell and make memes about Ben Johnson. Like, the beauty of sports and the beauty of what should be sports media and commentary is being able to create these stories. Whether it's the all-time dominant team like the Kansas City Chiefs, or it's one of these teams that could write beautiful upset stories like the Broncos, or the Commanders are going to have a chance, or even hell, the Packers are the 7th seed again. What if they beat Philadelphia in back-to-back years? We knock off the Eagles and the Cowboys as clear underdogs. What does that do for Jordan Love's trajectory? What does that do for Jordan Love's story? But most people don't want to talk about the story from the underdog perspective. Most people don't want to sit there and embrace the positive and uplifting thing. No, we want to clown on and we want to laugh. And we're destroying the value in what is a truly wonderful upset story, which are some of the best stories written throughout the history of sports. Why do we want to take that away from ourselves? There's no reason to. But no, go on the internet, get your jokes off, make your memes. There's a bunch of wonderful and amazing storylines that could happen. What if the Chargers, who are an underdog, what if Jim Harbaugh potentially goes back-to-back national championship Super Bowl? Could you imagine that? No, we'll talk about the failure of the Chiefs in crunch time, or the Bills unable to get it done, or we'll discuss, Lamar in the playoffs. Jim Harbaugh could go back-to-back 2 different levels of the sport and win championships. That's a storyline. That's something that we can push. It just feels sad, man. Like we're losing the joy and the magic of some of these truly wonderful upsets. Now, to a team that I don't think is going to be upset, the Lions-Vikings obviously played last night. It was the first time in NFL history 2 teams with 14-plus wins played, and the pendulum was going a little too far. The Lions, and I understand it, were suffering a bunch of injuries. The Lions their defense has been horrible the last month due to a lot of these injuries. But they were the best team all season. For all these people, and again, everybody was on, a lot of the public was on Minnesota last night. Sam Darnold, look at how he's playing. Justin Jefferson, Kevin O'Connell, all of the love and the adoration and the attention was all on Minnesota. Detroit had been the best team in the NFL, and in the NFC specifically, for talking about seeding, since week 1. This was their year. They felt like they should have been the 1 seed, and they went out there, they kicked ass, they dominated, and they felt like the best team in the NFC, which is what they've been all year. We complain, and I've been doing it too, that the Kansas City Chiefs, as a 15-2 team, don't quite feel like the best team in the AFC. Blocked field goal here, or questionable call there. All these things that are going on that we feel like they're not as good as what their record says. Well, then we should be uplifting a team like the Lions, who feel exactly as good as the record is, if not better. Because if the Lions, ask yourself this, if the Lions were healthy on defense, would they be clear Super Bowl favorites? Not just in Vegas, but to yourself and the overwhelming majority. If they had Aiden Hutchinson and all these guys that they lost on defense, wouldn't they be clearly the Super Bowl favorite? The team that was clearly the best in the NFL? No, we're going to sit there and we want, and again, no disrespect to what Sam Darnold and the Vikings did. They had a great season. But this idea that the last 2 to 3 weeks, or 3 to 4 weeks, because of injuries, and because of, again, we were just enamored with Sam Darnold had been so bad, with all due respect, in our memories for 6+ years that we're like, oh, well, he can't really be this. Jared Goff has been to a Super Bowl, was kicked out by the Rams. We know the story of Detroit. It feels like a tough, physical team. They take after Dan Campbell. And this might be their only shot. And this is a team that probably recognized this might be their only shot being this good. Not just from a talent perspective, but from a coaching perspective. When are you ever going to have 2 coordinators like Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, who are probably head coaches next year? So, congrats to Minnesota. It's been an incredible season. It's also got a chance to go real bad real fast if you go from 14-2, Sam Darnold talking about $50 million contracts. Oh, we could move J.J. McCarthy. We're so set up. And it could potentially end with losing that game to the Lions and then your first playoff game against the Rams, and now you're out. But the Lions, that's the team you want to see be the 1 seed. They were the most dominant from start to finish. They were the best team in the NFL the entirety of the season. They should be the 1 seed. If Minnesota, despite how great the record is, you wouldn't walk into the playoffs and go, oh yeah, clearly Sam Darnold and the Minnesota Vikings are the number 1 seed in the NFC. We've been giving Kansas City shit for this all year. And the only thing Kansas City really has to fall back on is pedigree. They're the 2-time defending champs. They have a resume, despite that this individual season might not show it. They have the resume of being multiple-time champions. We know Andy Reid. We know Mahomes, we know Kelsey, we know Chris Jones, all these things. But the Lions, clap it up for them. A franchise that was historically bad. Historically bad. Even with great players, even with Barry Sanders, still bad. Even with Calvin Johnson, still bad. Even with Matthew Stafford, still bad. Can now sit there and go, we're the number 1 seed in the NFC. We've been the best football team from start to finish. And now they get the bye, get a chance to get a little more healthy. That was good. This is the difference, one of the many, in the NFL and the NBA. What the Lions did, winning that game, like when the Spurs used to be great with Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili, they weren't just great for a stretch. They weren't just great for the playoffs. They were great start of the season, all the way to the end of the season, all the way until they held up a trophy. We love the San Francisco Giants of that late 2000s, early 2010s. Get hot, win a World Series title. We love the stories of Eli Manning, get hot at the end of the season, win, beat the undefeated Patriots. But for the long-term health of a sport and to make the regular seasons in all of these sports feel like they matter immensely, a team like Detroit being the number 1 seed, that stuff's important. They won that game. They deserved it. They were the best team in football, start to finish. We're going to take a quick break here. When we come back, I know it's a quarterback league. Obviously, no one's going to dispute that. But a lot of the best teams in the NFL right now, it's because of their running back, not necessarily their quarterback. So much so that there's a team that's still a favorite, and we don't even know if their quarterback's healthy or going to be able to play in their first playoff game. That and much more. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. This is definitely a case of expectations. There is no expectations. Drake Mace, we can go out there, he can throw the ball around. Even though he's throwing game-ending interceptions, it doesn't matter. Caleb Williams, who has played some of the best, worst football ever, like, he's not throwing interceptions, and so his passer rating still looks good. Some of the things that he's doing, but he's also not throwing touchdowns. He wasn't really giving the explosive plays. I understand the coaching in Chicago has been a shit show all year. They obviously they've been firing more and more people. They did retain Thomas Brown, though, to be the head coach, so we'll see where this goes. This is definitely a case of expectations. There is no, and with, excuse me, we are back. So, Tony's going to join us here in a few minutes. Happy Monday to everybody. The NFL, and most sports work this way. You can't go, I always talk about like a pendulum, like a theoretical pendulum of how far an opinion can go before we just lose the plot, right? If you're too far left or too far right, never really works out. The NFL is clearly a passing-dominated league and has been really since let's give it the end of the 2000s, right? About 07, 08, we've really hit this corner of it is a passing league. Quarterbacks matter the most. Even after quarterback, the next most important positions are a left tackle to protect your quarterback, a pass rusher to go get the other team's quarterback, and then corner, receiver, somewhere on there. But it all revolves on the passing game. To where you've seen it with running back contracts, they've gotten substantially less and less and less. And now, again, we had Derrick Henry, who was a no doubt Hall of Famer, was struggling to get $7 million a year from the Dallas Cowboys, and that would have been unthinkable 20, 30 years ago in the NFL. But I want you to think about this. So, Colin Cowherd, respectable as hell, one of my favorite guys to watch. He always talks about doing a quarterback face-off, right? Like, take all the teams and predict the winner based off your quarterback. And he's like, if you see Lamar versus the guy who's obviously not as good, you take Lamar. You take the better quarterback. What if we did that with running backs, though? What if we took every single game and we said, pick the best running back? Now, there's a little bit of a caveat here, obviously. I'm going to kind of include in toss-ups because we have a lot more quarterbacks that are more athletic. They get more running yards. I'm going to do mildly include in this equation. But let's just go through. Chargers, Texans. Right now, I would tell you smart money is on the Chargers, but the Texans, Joe Mixon, objectively, the better running back. J.K. Dobbins, who's been the Chargers' best running back when he's healthy, has just not stayed healthy enough. But the same way we would with quarterbacks, if Lamar had a year where he missed a few games, but he was healthy at the end, you would go the better running game and more consistent running back. Joe Mixon's the better name. It'd be the Chargers. And that, too, you should say should win that game. So Chargers, Texans. Let's see. We're going to revisit this, and we're going to see how right we are, right? Just take the best running back. Chargers, Texans. Chargers have it. Steelers, Ravens. It's not close. It's Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry and the Ravens should win this game. Packers, Eagles. Jalen Hurts is still not out of concussion protocol. The Eagles are still favored. Why? Because even though the Packers, with Jordan Love, who has been, I don't want to say inconsistent, but has a bunch of really big highs and a bunch of really lows, they've become more reliant on their running game. And Josh Jacobs is arguably the most important person on their offense. But if I go Josh Jacobs or Saquon Barkley wins. Let's go Vikings, Rams. The Vikings have Aaron Jones. The Rams, while I like Williams, I would go Vikings. And again, this isn't opinionated in terms of which team I think is better. This is strictly running back face-off. Commanders, Bucks. Bucks, especially with the way Irving's playing. Bucky Irving is one of the, we get so fixated on the Rookie of the Year race because obviously the two quarterbacks, Bo and Jaden, and Caleb earlier in the year. And then Brock Bowers obviously came on, was having one of the most productive seasons ever for a tight end, rookie or not. But Bucky Irving had one of the best seasons in the NFL for a rookie, and unfortunately didn't get enough love and attention and shine for that. But I go there. And then Broncos, Bills. I'd give it to the Bills. Cook had 16, or I think ended with 17 touchdowns on the season. And the Bills also have a great offensive line similar to Denver. Denver's a little unfortunate because even though they have a great offensive line, they've had a great season, they've still struggled to run the football. So normally quarterback face-off, you would just go, okay, Herbert, Stroud. Okay, most people are going to take Herbert. Steelers, Ravens, Lamar versus Russ. People are going to take Lamar. Packers, Eagles, Hurts, Love. You're going to be a little more of a toss-up there. I think people, though, have resume would take Hurts. Vikings, Rams, people would take Stafford. But if we're just doing running backs, and we're going to revisit this again, we're going to revisit this next week. Just running back face-off, who wins? That gives us Chargers, Ravens, Eagles, Vikings, Bucks, Bills. Those are your 6 teams who advance on to the next weekend. Think about it. And with that, we are joined by Tony is in here. I'm told I got to get new intros to everybody. So no longer the richest man y'all will never meet. But how we doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. We'll figure that out next episode, y'all. Stay tuned.
Amen. So I want to ask you this first before we get into obviously how you feel about the Ravens playoffs. So I started the show off.
Oh no, go ahead.
So I started the show off today, and I said, and some of this is internet, and some of this is just the unraveling of humanity, unfortunately. But I feel like we've lost the joy in upsets. Growing up, it used to be the teams that made these huge upsets were celebrated. Where I feel now the way sports media and sports culture is it's almost like, oh, you better not lose. Like we want to shame the loser more than we want to uplift some of these winners. Like growing up, the 69 Mets, that was this, Cinderella-esque story. If you want to go to, one of your favorite teams is unfortunately like the 2012 Ravens. It was like, that was a team that wasn't expected to win at all, but does. And they celebrate the story. We don't sit there and, dwell on the losers in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I ask, have we ruined the idea of a good upset? Like if Green Bay goes in there with Jordan Love and beats Philadelphia if Jalen Hurts is healthy, to me, that should be a celebration of Jordan Love and the Packers, not just some downfall of Philadelphia. But I know how the internet's going to take that is we're going to get Jalen Hurts memes and all this stuff. Have we ruined the joy of a great upset story, a great Cinderella story with sports?
Kinda, but it's like that's obviously it's all media driven. I think that if the Packers were to do that, they're a little bit different because they did it last year in Dallas, and for them to do that 2 back-to-back years against the NFC East would be very funny. Number one, but it would also kind of show that okay, this is a team that no matter what happens in the regular season, they're always going to be dangerous. And that I think also raises the profile of Jordan Love as well. And you assume Jalen Hurts is going to play? We don't really know.
I'm assuming. I'm not going to play doctor, so I'm just until they tell me he's out, I'm just going to go with he's there.
But I do think that the upset has been minimized to a degree. I think that if, for example, what me and you both feel has a pretty good chance. Neither one of us is saying it will happen, but we both feel that Denver's a live dog. And if they were to do that, I do think that them doing it would be minimized a little just because it would probably be more of a Josh Allen choke narrative, which I don't think is fair because we're talking about one of the best defenses in the league, talking about a coach that's, seemingly doing it again with a rookie quarterback who's playing at a really high level over the last few weeks. And if I'm saying that,
I was about to say, I'm like, y'all witnessing history, man. Like
I do think that it's been minimized to some degree, but it's never going to be a universal thing. Whereas like we praise the upset and we don't give a lot of shit to the team that was upset because there's more value in the story of you blew it,
Yeah, no, I agree with a lot of that. Again, it just feels like there's some of these stories I feel like we're almost taking away some of those. Again, like I brought up Flacco, like that's a memory you have the rest of your life. Even if there's other great Ravens teams, other teams that win Super Bowls, like that year has it's special because it came from this underdog type of story. Um, we'll go to the Ravens here. Are you worried about at all round 3 versus Pittsburgh? Would you have preferred it to be a team less familiar with Baltimore, or are you actually happy that it's a team they are theoretically the most familiar with in the playoffs?
There's some fan anxiety that comes with playing the Steelers, of course, because they're the Steelers and weird things always tend to happen when the Ravens play the Steelers. But if I'm just looking at it from the say I'm not a fan of either team and I just look and I say, okay, the Steelers have played like shit the last few weeks. They haven't the offense hasn't been what it was over the prior 2 months, essentially. They they aren't getting much contributions on that side of the ball. The defense is still playing really well, but it can be gotten. We just seen it get lit up in Kansas City against an offense that hasn't been explosive all year.
Mm-hmm.
So we seen it 4 or 5 days before that when they played the Ravens and they got ran all over. So it the Ravens should have won this game. Not having Zay Flowers is not ideal, but you have to coach around that. It's the playoffs. There is no next week. You have to throw everything that you have at this game because you're down. You're down your number one wide receiver, statistically at least. You're down. You're down another explosive player. So you have to go into this with what you have, and what you have is what a lot of teams will kill for.
Mm-hmm.
Rashad Bateman, who has 9 touchdowns, who averages 18 yards a catch. A Mark Andrews, who has gotten into the end zone essentially every week since November. Um, a Isaiah Likely, who would be a number one tight end in a lot of other teams. So you have to go into this with what you have, and what you have is a really good cover, and that's not to mention the 1,900 yard, 16 touchdown running back that you have, along with the 45 plus touchdown, um, only four interception, 900 yard rushing quarterback. So it's like you're the better team, you're
It's
the more
insane.
talented team. You should win this game. It's just and like I said, when they played the Steelers in Pittsburgh, like I said, when they played them a few weeks ago, if the Ravens play clean, it won't be a close game. Minimize the penalties, don't turn the ball over, things like that. If they play Pittsburgh clean, they'll win the game by multiple scores. But that is just no guarantee that they'll do that.
No, that was um I do want to ask this. So I'm over the whole like this is the only non-playoff team we're talking about. I think the Cincinnati narrative got really annoying the last few weeks of like,
Hmm.
oh, this is like the scariest team. This is the scariest team. You can't justify being the scariest team. Yeah. Could you say on any given day, yes, could Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins go out there and go crazy? 1,000%. But the idea that this was the team, like if y'all were so scary, then this shouldn't take like September shouldn't be a 0 win or 1 win month. Like you losing to Jacoby Brissett and now Gerard Mayo, who just got fired earlier. Like I understand we love offense, but was there ever, I guess, in your mind, like, was that narrative ever justified of Cincinnati being quote unquote scary? And even if they had made it, would you have felt nervous if the Ravens had to play the Bengals in the second round?
Um, well, for them to match up with the Bengals, it would have been conference championship if that came to be.
Yeah, because
I
they would have
do
got because they would have the
the
Chiefs in the
seventh.
second round. Yeah.
I do think that they would have been a threat. To what extent? I don't know. It's hard to say. Like they can score on anybody, but they can be scored on too. Like the defense is bad. It's just bad. It's not good. And T. Higgins is bad on the ankle thing, so that kind of makes them less explosive. You don't really know Chase Brown's situation, and they really could not run the ball without him. So it's essentially Joe Burrow. Mike Gesicki was playing some ball, and Jamar Chase. It's like you can manage around that. Would
Mm-hmm.
they have given Buffalo problems? Absolutely. Um, would they have given the Chiefs problems? Sure, but I mean, the Chiefs probably would have won that game though. It's like Joe Burrow gets a lot of credit for almost beating the Chiefs. Like he beat them,
That's
and then he gets a lot of credit for almost doing it. And it's just like, okay, bro, whatever. Like
yeah.
like
No,
sure.
1,000%. Like
Like sure. Like sure. I wouldn't have worried about the Ravens facing them because it would have been a situation where the Ravens would have gotten them at home again, conference championship, and just a much better defense than the Bengals played those first two games. I like clearly a much better, just a better team, let alone defense, just a better team overall. So, but they could have made some noise maybe, but like they punted a fucking month, and then
that's
they semi punted October. They got going in November, and it's just like you don't get rewarded for losing, like you just don't,
mhm.
and you can't decide to finally play some real football, or I don't even say play real football, just you don't get rewarded for having things bounce in your favor. Because it's not as if anything changed for that team from September to December. Some metrics may look a little bit different for the defense, but they played lesser teams as well. So it's like eh, the Cincinnati thing is stupid, but people want to grasp on anything because they're just tired of the Chiefs winning all the time, which is fair.
No, trust me, I am. I am. We're gonna get to the Chiefs though here in a second. So I do want to ask. Oh, I just pulled it up. All right. So I think the least interesting game right now is just off face value. I'm gonna say is Chargers Texans.
Hmm.
Which is unfortunate, but like if you've seen a Jim Harbaugh coach team, it's not super exciting, even with Justin Herbert, a quarterback. And I love CJ. I like what the Texans do. There's just something that just feels off about them right now. Um, I want to go to, I think, the game that's going to end up being the most interesting, and that's Vikings Rams. Now, I coming into the game, Minnesota Detroit, I felt like a lot of people started to sway a little too hard towards Minnesota, but they were like, oh, look, they've
I'm
got the
probably one of those
momentum. And
people. I'm probably
what?
one of those people. I said I'm probably one of those people.
Yeah, and it's like the Lions, it felt good to me because I'm big on like, and the NFL doesn't have this issue, but like the regular season needs to matter. And the Lions were clearly from start to finish the best team in the NFC. And so I am glad they got the 1 seed. But Vikings Rams, this is where stuff goes from this is how quick life gets on you, right? A week ago, there was talks about is someone paying Sam Darnold $50 million a season? Sam doesn't look good last night. And if he goes to the Rams, and I don't want to use the word exposed, but let's say plays old school Sam Darnold-ish, right? So not a good
Hmm.
playoff game. They don't score a lot of points. And especially if like Jefferson, some of the receivers are fresh on the sideline clearly, and their season's over. So you're 14-2, and then boom, you're out. Don't win another game out of the playoffs after 1 week. If you're the Vikings, who do you have in this game? Because we both like the Rams a lot coming into this season. And
Yeah.
then the Vikings we did like, but we were retracted when JJ got hurt. So who do you like in this game? And if Sam Darnold does put up a quote unquote old Sam Darnold or a stinker of a game, if you're Minnesota, what do you do with him?
I haven't really thought about it. I'll be just because like I was probably more interested to see how the Rams would look against the Lions in the third matchup, but um I would I would probably still pick the Vikings just because I don't really know what the Rams do on the back end against those receivers. I think that
Mm-hmm.
if they can get pressure, it gets a little bit tricky, but I don't know if they'll be able to really do that in a way that helps them win the game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I would probably still lean Vikings, but of course, like the Rams are going to be they're live as anybody. Like it'll it'll be it'll be a close game. I don't think it's a blowout either way, and they can score with the Vikings, but I just don't. They're probably more prone to make them the mistakes, and that
Mm-hmm.
sounds kind of funny to say considering the Sam
Yeah,
Darnold's the quarterback, but
that's
the Rams don't really have any room for they don't have a margin for error that's like why it's very small. The Vikings bring in a defense that can get stops. They bring in playmakers. The Rams have to essentially score every time they got the ball.
yeah, yeah. We'll go to the other game. We talk about Denver being a live dog. We'll go to the other game with the rookie quarterback, which shout out, I heard twice, and this is just one of those things of like, and this is the NFL, so there's literally no excuse. I heard two prominent people on sports shows, one on CBS and one on Fox Sports, who asked like almost out loud and were like, yeah, man, I think it's the first time we're going to have two rookie quarterbacks ever make the playoffs. And I'm like, it was insane to me on the CBS one because I'm like, you're on the set with Matt Ryan. Like, you literally want, like, well, I wonder when the last two rookie quarterbacks made the playoffs. Like, you sit anyway. Other game of the rookie quarterback, obviously, is Jaden Daniels, the Commanders versus the Buccaneers.
Not only that, fucking RG3 and Andrew Luck made the playoffs.
It's like it's like this is us growing up. That was a legitimate question. Rookie quarterback was way different back in 2009, 2010, right? Like,
yeah, because we might not see him until year 3.
Yeah, like Carson Palmer, who was one of like, you had to watch him to realize like Carson Palmer was a great quarterback during his prime. Like, I know. They were literally called stories. They were literally called stories. Upset stories. When I was the NFL and the NBA, what the Lions did winning that game, like when the Spurs used to be great with Duncan, Parker, and Ginobili, they weren't just great for a stretch. They weren't just great for the playoffs. They were great start of the season, all the way to the end of the season, all the way until they held up a trophy.
The Bucks, I do think there's something to say for the Bucks getting to the divisional round because I think they have a good shot to get to the conference championship game to me because of the ability to score, because of how the offense has come along. I think the defense can make plays. I don't think the defense is great at all. I don't think they're a great defense, but I do think they have some guys that have been here before. And they got guys that can make some plays. So I think it's interesting, but they're able to run the ball. Mike Evans is back. Jalen McMillan's been playing really good ball over the last month and a half or so. But I think the Commanders win it just because I think they have more playmakers, specifically on the defensive side. And offensively, with Jaden's ability to run the ball, Terry McLaurin's been balling out. I probably would give them the coaching edge too. So I think that they are probably going to win, but it would not shock me at all if the Bucks win this game.
The Bucks have, so if the last 5 years, you talked about this a little bit too on group chats, like the last 5 years, the Bucks have as good or as great a resume as any NFC team, which is kind of wild. If you take Brady's, so the year they obviously win the title, then you get Brady's last year, and you get these few years of Baker, like they beat the Eagles last year, made it to the division round. Like, this is a divisional round bare minimum team at least,
right?
Which is wild that like their worst season and all of that is Brady going under 500 and losing his first game. And it's like, when your worst years with Brady, you're doing something pretty good. But no one views the Bucks in that category because we view Brady as almost isolated from their success because obviously he's a Patriot forever. I do want to ask, if you're Ben Johnson, and now because I've heard a lot of people speak Bill Simmons especially. You and Bill Simmons are probably tied for Drake May's #1 fan. So I'm asking you, if you're Ben Johnson and you are the premier offensive coordinator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you pick, and you got to take both franchises into consideration. Do you take Drake May and what the Patriots are going to have, which is a ton of cap space, top 5 draft pick, and obviously Drake? Or do you go to the Bears with Caleb, still some draft capital, but not as much as the Patriots, and slightly older team, but more established good players?
If I'm Ben Johnson, I want to go to the Patriots because they got the money. And you're going to have to kind of rebuild everything to your image either way. And the Bears have a good amount of cap as well, but the Patriots have more. And you get away from the Lions, so you don't got to play them twice, so you don't have to really kind of worry about like, okay, they know me, they don't know me, blah blah blah. Like, you don't really got to worry about it. Mm-hmm. And you want to go to the AFC East because it's a lesser division.
Yeah.
obviously, like you got like if your only worry is okay, I gotta outscore Josh Allen, like fine, I'll deal with that. Like you're you're not worried about what the Jets are doing. They're the Jets. You're not worried about what the Dolphins are doing. They're the Dolphins. So you're essentially saying, okay, I got to deal with Josh Allen twice, and then I can just kind of manage around that.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be in that situation. Um, it's a tougher conference, but I'm fine with that. If I feel like we got the money, we know what we're doing on this side of the ball. Um, I have my quarterback. I want to establish. I want to get him the best offensive line money can buy. I'm going to draft weapons around him as time goes on. This is going to take some time, but I trust my ability as a play caller. I trust the structure that I'm gonna build as the head coach. So I would say the Patriots. Now, if he were to choose the Bears, I get it because you get Caleb Williams, you still got DJ Moore on the contract, you got Roma Dunze, you got Kyle, you got Cole Kmet, and you got a lot to work with there from an offensive standpoint. But
Mm-hmm.
and the defense is strong as well. Defense got really good pieces, but you have to
Absolutely.
compete with more within the division. And there's always going to be, if you say, okay, this is a lesser conference, that means higher draft picks. That means higher skill level players over the years, you know?
Mhm.
So I'd rather find myself in the AFC if I'm Ben Johnson.
No, I agree with you. It's when I was thinking about it, I was like, and again, if we want to say Caleb's the better talent, fine. I'm not going to really argue someone with that. But I agree with you in division. There's a massive difference between the NFC North and the AFC East. Like the NFC North has two 14-win teams. Like that's insane. And then still a third team that won 11 games and is also in the playoffs. So my division, the people I have to play are less good. And also, Ben Johnson, you kind of an asshole as a play caller. So it's like if you act like when your team is
It's
struggling,
very funny.
teams won't like pull out everything they can against you. Like
It's
you
very
going them
funny.
on a lot of sports in the top tens. And to the tougher conference point, the AFC is only the tougher conference because they have all the superhero quarterbacks. If you feel
Right.
like Drake May is the superhero quarterback, then fine, I'm ready to roll. Like, because I
Hmm.
feel like I got my guy. The same way, this is why Baltimore, Lamar, Buffalo, Josh Allen, Kansas City, obviously Mahomes, like those are the teams that feel like they can compete with anybody because they have these. And two, or then my last point is like they I know Gerard Manners got fired after a season, but there was at least some proof of concept from an ownership and a management level. The Patriots have proven with this current group in place that if something is successful, they'll get out the way. They'll just write checks, stay out the way. Versus the Bears, there's a lot of stories been coming out of Chicago. There's a bunch of stuff on like with Ryan Pace, and I think Ryan Pace is a good GM, but there's him and the president and a lot of noise that gets out that makes me feel like, okay, do the Bears structurally really get this? Versus New England's been talent deprived, but we've all seen under this ownership group, under this management, like they're willing to, hey, put the pieces out there, write checks, and then get out the way. So yeah, if I'm him, I think I'm probably going to New England as well.
Hmm.
Cliff Kingsbury though might be a head coach again because we just can't. I don't know how Cliff
They
Kingsbury
can't
got.
quit. People can't quit Cliff Kingsbury, and I think it says a lot about if you're likable, you'll always have a job.
That's a fact. Steve Spagnuolo, be more likable, man. Someone hires Steve Spagnuolo just so the Chiefs don't have him no more. Like that is that so hard? Like part of this Chiefs dynasty is I'm like, y'all let them keep the enemy for years. Y'all let them keep Spagnuolo for years. Like at some point, can we just start like everybody else rips coordinators, but we just don't rip coordinators from the Chiefs?
To the
Man,
be enemy of it all, I think it's just because people feel like, okay, that's Andy Reid. But to the
Matt
Spags
Nagy
of
got
it
a
all,
job.
to the Spags of it all, I think his first run was kind of just so like people it turned a lot of people off from it. If he wants if that's what he wants, like you said, like if he wants that opportunity, he probably hasn't gotten it just because that first time just rubbed a lot of people the wrong way.
You get the Rams. The Rams ain't been back to St. Louis since him. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Hey man, I appreciate you as always. We'll catch you next weekend on Sunday.
Yep.
you want to go the God route, you want to make it DBZ, fine. I don't think that's very interesting.
No, I agree.
And I think that like you can do these crazy like I think one of the things people hoped for with Boruto, and it was when we went to go see that movie years ago, and it's when we got like the manga announced and when they announced the show and everything.
hmm
And the hope was that it would go back to the roots of what made Naruto popular.
hmm
I just think the creators didn't understand what made Naruto good. For us,
No,
there's
I
gonna
agree.
be an audience of people that want ass kicking. I just don't think it's the fun. Like, I don't think that's fun. Oh,
It
wow, Boruto has hands. And I'm like, but me too, man. Like, I don't know. Like, like you want to.
And we are back. Sorry we're a little off schedule today. It's been trying to get everything in. But because of that, a little off schedule. Sorry, my bad. Let's talk about the Bengals. We talked about this a little with Tony and the idea that the Bengals were this really dangerous team and no one wanted to see them in the playoffs and all these other things. And Bengal fans, they're living on that right now. Oh my gosh, the Chiefs even threw a game because they didn't want to see us. Listen, I know Chris Broussard made it a popular thing that, wow, 17 games ruined it because the Broncos played the Chiefs and the Chiefs got to rest everybody. If it was 16 games, Denver would have clinched a week ago. So let's not act like the 17th game was what really screwed them over. Here's the problem for Cincinnati fans. And I made this scenario with the Vikings fans where the potential of if you lost, which you did, you lost Detroit. And then if you were to lose your first playoff game, you go from 14-2 to 14-4 out the playoffs. And does that soil the season? I don't believe that personally, but that's very much a reality. Bengal fans, I know you guys think you're the scariest team of all time. I know you guys think you would score 50 points on the 85 Bears. I know you guys believe that you are actually the dynasty of the NFL and that Joe Burrow is the greatest quarterback ever and this, that, and the third. I get it. I really do. But what if ownership really screws this up? Jamar Chase just had one of the most incredible seasons for an NFL wide receiver in history. He won the Triple Crown. First receiver ever, 1,700 yards, 17 touchdowns. Incredible season, incredible player. Jamar Chase deserves all the love. He deserves all the money he's going to get, and trust me, he's going to get it. Now, what's the problem with that? You also have T. Higgins, who is a number one receiver in his own right and would have even more numbers and stats if he wasn't with Jamar Chase as his teammate. And everybody understands that. Everybody knows that. We all understand the kind of player T. Higgins is. He's going to get paid. You're already paying Joe Burrow. The problem is Joe Burrow, throughout your franchise's history with one of the cheapest ownership groups in all of professional sports, Joe Burrow is your exception. And that's your problem. The Bengals have never paid top dollar for somebody. And now we're just to assume they're going to pay top dollar for 3. The idea has been, oh, well, they're for sure going to re-sign Chase, and T. Higgins is going to have to be the one to walk. If I'm Jamar Chase, not only do I want what Justin Jefferson got, I want multiple $1 million on top of it because look what I just did, and that's with another number one next to me. Justin Jefferson, and now Chase, there's no real conversation on who's the real number one on that team, but Justin Jefferson doesn't have a T. Higgins. He doesn't have a guy who takes that many targets, that many touchdowns, those kind of numbers over him, and he still won the Triple Crown. Bengal fans, are you understanding what I'm saying? What if the notoriously cheap ownership group, who paying their quarterback $50+ million a year as the exception, and they don't re-sign either of these guys because they waited too long? What have we been clowning Jerry Jones on? And Jerry historically pays. But he waited on Dak, got punished. Largest contract ever. He waited on CD, would have been the largest contract ever, other guys signed for their positions. Now he's waiting on Micah. What's Micah going to get? But Jerry historically pays. Jerry historically isn't cheap. I know we've made fun of him last year or so, but when it comes to star players, if you're a star player for the Cowboys, you are far more likely to be paid than a star player for the Bengals. If I'm Bengals fans, and this is I don't do hot takes in this regard of like, let me just say the most outlandish thing and see if people will react. But I truly believe this. This is my hot take for 2025. The Bengals don't re-sign Jamar Chase or T. Higgins. They both walk. They both get massive money from another team. And then the Bengals ownership will wonder why fans are upset, why fans become less interested to go to games, because the Bengals are ran like the slimmest of margins business. We can only make so much money, so I have to be cheap everywhere. I can't spend too much on this or too much on that. This is a professional football team that brings in millions upon millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're ran like a corner store. We all love our corner stores. You've also probably been overcharged at your corner store. Price just magically changes when you get up to the register. Now, I like my corner store people, so I don't get that experience as often, but it happens. I've seen it happen. There's a level to that kind of business running a corner store and running an NFL team. And again, we've never seen the Bengals pay money like that. And you're going to say, oh, well, they paid Chad and TJ. Entirely different world. Receivers weren't making money like that when Chad and TJ were there with Carson Palmer. But now you're paying Joe Burrow $55 million a year. Palmer, TJ, and Chad, the three of them combined, weren't making that when they played. And now this owner, who has been historically cheap, is just going to turn everything around and start saying, you know what? I'm going to pay Chase. I'm going to pay T. Higgins. I'm going to pay a tight end. I got to pay someone on defense. Trey Hendrickson just led the league in sacks. This team that was super dangerous. This team that no one wanted to play. This team that was the scariest thing walking. Could score 50 on anybody. Could potentially start next season. Hendrickson upset because he hasn't gotten a deal. No Chase, no Higgins, and just 2 years removed from also letting Bates walk out the door. Telling you, historically cheap owner, not well-run franchise. I'm supposed to believe they just figured it all out, and now they're going to start handing out money to everyone who's a great player for them. Jesse Bates might be the best safety in the league. They just let him walk out the door a year ago. I know Joe Burrow's campaigning because I think Joe Burrow sees it. Joe Burrow started talking a lot about, man, we got to re-sign Higgins. Man, we got to re-sign Higgins. Of course we got to re-sign Chase. Of course we got to re-sign Chase. I think he sees the writing on the wall. He's actually in the building. He goes, yeah, why haven't you signed arguably the best receiver in the league? Yeah, why didn't you sign arguably the best number 2 receiver in the league? And look, you could have signed both for a much better price if you just signed them 2 years ago, and you probably still could have had your safety. This is how teams start to stack talent. You sign a few guys early, they continue to produce at a high level, and that lets you draft, bring in some lower-end free agents. Like, that's how you start to get teams like, not this year, but the previous version of the Niners where you're stacking 7-8 all-pros. That's how you get this version of the Eagles where you've got 7-8 guys who are arguably all-pro-ish level. You pay guys early. It means you get to when you pay a guy early, it means you're paying the market value for that exact year, but they become immediately cheap and a bargain a year or two later. You just got to take care of a couple guys early. You just got to be a smart, well-run franchise, which, sorry, Bengal fans, I have no reason to believe that you are. So, again, my hot take to start 2025, the Bengals don't re-sign Chase or T. Higgins. Go into the year with a pissed-off Joe Burrow, pissed-off Trey Hendrickson, and let's see how dangerous you are then. So, I can't not talk a little bit about the team that wasn't supposed to be here, the team that was only projected to get 5.5 wins in Vegas, the team that took the worst rookie quarterback of all time. Can we just acknowledge what Sean Payton and Bo Nix did this year? First, Bo Nix, third most touchdown. The guy who everyone told me was ass. The guy that everyone told me wasn't good at all. The guy that everyone told me, easiest bust call ever. Third most touchdowns ever by a rookie quarterback. 34. Only Cam Newton and Justin Herbert had more. All time. Think about it. The guy, Sean Payton, the guy who was told at multiple times last year, offense is outdated. He's a Drew Brees merchant. Can he actually call a good game plan outside of a dome? Denver's offense wasn't great, but look at the comparison from last year's offense to this year's offense. And let's, of course, look at comparison when you're there versus when you're gone. And let's look at the number one factor, Russell Wilson, who, by the way, took more sacks in his 10 starts than Knicks did in 17. Think about that. And what did Sean Payton say last year? Primarily, sacks are a quarterback stat. Yes, you need your offensive line to protect. But there's just certain guys who know how to get the ball out quick, avoid pressure, and that's what Bo did. Bo's biggest accomplishment isn't the touchdown passes, isn't the rushing yards, isn't the total TDs. It is the Denver had, now they led the league in sacks too, which helped, but had the largest sack differential by a mile. Sacked 22 times on the season, 24 times, I'm sorry, and got 60 sacks on defense. By a mile. This team, which is projected to do all kinds of horrible this year, did really well, and they only majorly improved in one area. That was it. I know you're going to say, oh, the defense was great compared to last year. The defense was arguably about the same, with the exception being there's no 70-point Miami game. Take out the 70-point Miami game, these defenses are a lot closer than people want to think. The biggest difference, sack differential. It kept plays alive, it kept drives alive, and Steeler fans who were telling me, Sean Payton sucks, he fucked up Russ, look what Russ is doing for us, see, we're actually a good franchise. How do you feel now? How do you feel now? Both ended up with the same record. But who feels better about where they're at today? And let's look at this. And Tony and I discussed this a little bit too when he was on here. And I've been talking about the underdogs today. Denver's an underdog against Buffalo, and they should be. And I tweeted this out earlier. Denver could win by 10 and lose by 40. Why? Because they have a defense that can get pressure. They have the best corner in the game and still a top 5 secondary. I know it hasn't looked great the last couple of weeks, but when Moss is actually healthy, Surtain is there being the elite lockdown, should be defensive player of the year that he is. This team that got 60 sacks. Bo Nix is able to sit there and extend plays. Now it's going to be tough against Buffalo because Buffalo has a great offensive line, but so does Denver. Bo being able to extend plays, keep plays alive. He's not taking sacks. This defense, which can be dominant. And Josh Allen, who is great, one of the 4 best quarterbacks on the planet, unquestioned, is probably going to win MVP, and if I would vote differently. But let's not act like Josh Allen can't be erratic. Let's not act like Josh Allen can't be had for a game. Let's not act like the same guy who goes out there and looks like Superman also had a game this year he went 9 of 30. Out of all the underdogs, it's a little biased, but I'm being so serious when I say this. Denver has the best chance as an underdog. Because when you're an underdog, you got to play at your peak, and the other team's got to play below their means and their norm. And Josh Allen is very much a candidate to play below his norm. And this defense, the 60-plus sacks, the defensive player of the year, great secondary. This offense, great offensive line, can possibly get you some running game. These receivers are better than people want to give them credit for, especially Cortland, who, again, 1,000-yard season, bounced back. This is absolutely a winnable game. Is it going to be tough? 1,000%. Am I saying Denver's going to win? Fuck no. But this is absolutely a winnable game. And of all the dogs, this is the best dog. When we come back, it is Monday, so we got to go hard right, hard left, what we were right about, what we were wrong about, and it is our season-long hard right, hard left for the NFL. So the things that I feel like I was the most correct in predicting this year and the thing that I was the most wrong. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. I'm joined, as always, by the Failiure. Will is in the building. How we doing, man?
Sensational.
How was drinking after 40? I hear that shit hits harder.
Yo.
Drinking at 40 is crazy. Number one, I never said I was. First, I'm 32. As of like a week and a half ago. Second, I didn't even say I was drinking. I just said I was outside.
So you gonna convince everybody you was outside and had no alcoholic beverages at all?
Nah. I'm just saying I never said I was drinking. I ain't saying I wasn't either.
I understand. Understandable. This nigga said in the text message before we got on this shit talking about like, yo, I'm about to have a macchiato.
I did not say I was about to have a macchiato. Tony said something about Italian, so I just named Italian.
I heard macchiato.
No, I said you can never go wrong with a macchiato. I got regular coffee though.
All right. I'm. Hey man, I always appreciate that clip. So it's Monday. We do HardRight, HardLeft every single Monday, and we go through and what we said. I got a lot of opinions, and so it's only fair that I evaluate myself, and everybody gets a chance to make fun of me. Where it's the things that I got the most right and things that I got the most wrong the prior week. Obviously, with the NFL season concluding, I felt it was only appropriate to do the season-long version of HardRight, HardLeft. The thing we were the most correct about this NFL season and the thing that we were the most wrong. And I think it's only fair if I start with the most wrong. So, if you listened to me the last couple of weeks, Tony and I have been going back and forth as far as when we did our preseason predictions, how those actually played out. And I've brought this up a couple of times. It's going to be a surprise to anybody that's been listening. The thing I got the most wrong by probably a mile is the Atlanta Falcons. Look, there was a lot I liked what the Falcons did. I thought Kirk was going to be able to recover coming off the ACL. He's never been a mobile quarterback, and to me, even if he was statuesque, it wasn't going to be that big of a difference for him. He's one of the few true pocket passers of the NFL. And I liked Atlanta's own line. I also really liked the fact that Atlanta didn't feel like they were that far off and did multiple moves to improve, especially right before the season. I liked the Matthew Judon signing. I liked for them getting Justin Simmons. I'm really sad Simmons isn't a Bronco this year. He deserves it. Missed the playoffs every year he was there. Should have gotten him one, but okay, I get it. So I like that move for them. Obviously, the last couple of drafts, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, it just seemed like it was, okay, you have eventually accumulated too much talent to fail. We've seen coaches fail. We've seen all these different situations throughout the course of NFL history where it feels like there's just too much here to fail, right? Very famously, the Dream Team in Philadelphia, when they Vince Young, Michael Vick, Deshaun Jackson, LaShawn McCoy, Nnamdi Asomugha, they had so much talent it felt like this can't fail, right? And unfortunately it did. But those are few and far between. Some teams just have too much natural talent to be terrible or to be bad or to even be just good. And I thought the Falcons were heading that way. O-line I liked the defensive additions, I liked the quarterback. I wasn't going to say I loved the head coach, but I was fine with it, right? And I just thought the division was going to be weak enough that this would work. I thought Carolina just simply didn't have enough guys, which that turned out to be true, even though they started to turn the corner towards the end of the season. Shout out to Dave Canales and that coaching job, but they did. I believe the Saints were the Saints season pretty much went how I thought, which is, again, not enough good players, too many old guys who aren't what they once were, getting paid too much money to really have a captivating or a playoff-esque roster, as well as the Bucs, who I thought were just okay, but nothing special. The Bucs ended up exceeding expectations. The Saints started off on fire, but ended up turning out to how I thought they were. And again, the Panthers, just not enough guys, even though they did turn their corner. Even with that, even with two of those three teams, and the Bucs, it wasn't like they had some amazing record. Baker had an amazing personal season. Mike Evans got another 1,000 yards, and the Bucs won the division. It feels like this was still Atlanta's division to lose. They finished 8-9, and besides Bijan Robinson, everybody just kind of feels like they're not who they were supposed to be. Drake London is good, supposed to be great, doesn't feel like he's going to get there. Kyle Pitts is 1 week, he makes the greatest catch you've ever seen from a tight end, and then he goes 4 or 5 weeks, and it's like, did he even suit up? The offensive line would have moments of brilliance, and then moments of can't block anyone. The defense, you see the names, you see the potential, and then they're giving up 30-plus points in back-to-back-to-back games. Everything, it just felt like if there was ever a cursed season. The Pelicans in the NBA right now are going to like a cursed season for the NBA. Like every time we look up, someone else is getting hurt, someone else is out. The Falcons season felt like it was just cursed. They could never really gain momentum. Even after their biggest win, the Kirk Cousins 500-yard game. Remember, this is the same team that beat Tampa twice. Tampa won that division, went 0-2 against a team in their division. You know how hard that is? Do you know how hard that is to go to win your division and you just flat out lose both your games to the second place team? Man, everything about Atlanta just felt like it was supposed to work. You finally had it. And here we are. And again, I picked them to win the division. I thought they were going to win 12, 13 games because I thought they had an easy schedule. Again, I thought all the talent was going to click. Bijan, Kyle Pitts, Drake London. Like everything seemed like it was ready to go. And then Kirk just hit a wall. The Charger game is the one I think I specifically go back to where he threw an interception in the end zone. I mean, it's most inexcusable. I'm not somebody who comes on here and says, oh, what professional athletes did in the moment is unacceptable. I'd act like I could do what they do. But throwing an interception when there was 4 Chargers in the end zone and only one of his guy, I was like, that can't be, like, without even being a professional athlete, I'm like, you don't make that decision. Like, that was an active choice to throw in the end zone, and he had already scrambled out of the pocket. He's not mobile, and he just kind of throws it up there, and it's a lame duck throw. It wasn't like, oh, you tried to rifle it in, and it just happened. No, it was a lob. Well, there's 4 Chargers in the end zone, only 1 Falcon. I thought, and that's their season. In that moment, I said, that's what he's supposed to do. Like, what do you do with that as an offense? I do think there is some optimism heading into next year, as there always is with the Falcons. There's always optimism for next year. With Penix getting those last couple of starts to end the year, they're gonna have to figure out something with Kirk's money because he's not gonna be on this team next year. And again, we're gonna be sitting around here going, Drake London, Bijan Robinson, Kyle Pitts. We'll see if they decided to stay with him. Michael Penix, the O-line. We'll see if Simmons, I know, is on a 1-year deal, and Judon they traded at the end of his contract. We'll see what they do with their defensive pieces. But man, I was really high on this Falcons team, and when you're wrong, you're wrong, and you got to eat it, man. And I was wrong. So my hard left for the NFL season is the Atlanta Falcons. I thought they were going to be much better than what they were. Turns out, 2 thumbs down. The Atlanta Falcons, you guys were not a good football team this year. HardRight for the NFL season. Now, I could tell you that I was right about the Broncos, but that's why I specifically wanted to discuss them in the first block of the second hour, is I didn't want to have them be my HardRight because you guys have all heard me say all the same things about Denver, and I would just be repeating stuff, and I don't really want to do that, and I don't think anybody really wants to hear me do that. But the HardRight I have, the 49ers were also, by the way, a close second for my hard left. I also had the 49ers very high on this list, but didn't work out. But I thought the Falcons were more of a, not only did you blow it, you blew it into a division I didn't think had as many good teams. Which is why my HardRight for this year has to go to the Los Angeles Rams. And this could have been really bad, right? The Rams were, to start the year, felt like they were the team cursed. Multiple guys going out, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Aaron Donald obviously just retired. Stafford wasn't playing very well. There was a million different things that could have gone wrong for the Rams, and I think if they had almost any other coach or any other quarterback, this season would have been straight to hell. You can tell when certain guys, I used to call this the Kobe factor, you can tell when certain guys who have success early in their career, they end up with levels of confidence some of us could never dream of, right? Like, we all know, like, Kobe's willingness to take the last shot. Yeah, he won 3 titles in his first 6 years of playing. He was a made man by 24 years old. He was an all-NBA guy, a multiple-time champion. He was damn near already a Hall of Famer, if not already a Hall of Famer. So yeah, missing a game-winning shot on a Wednesday against the Kings wasn't going to make or break him. Versus some guys who don't have the accolades, who don't have the hardware, they're a little more likely to go, should I do that? They're not totally made. They're not, whether whatever happens right now is not going to make or break my career or my legacy or my impact. They're who they are. The Rams having Matthew Stafford at quarterback, a guy who is already a borderline Hall of Famer with or without the season, a guy who already has a title, a guy who already has multiple records, a guy who's already been paid however many hundreds of millions of dollars. He was a made man. He had no reason to sit there and panic and stress and go, oh my gosh, this season's going to break me. Same with Sean McVay. Sean McVay already has a title, is already considered one of the best head coaches ever, is already an offensive genius, already has all of these things going for him. One bad season is not going to make or break his career. So if you're Sean McVay and you're Matthew Stafford, you already have all the credentials that this season, even though it started off wrong, isn't going to make or break you. And you have experience. I said this a few weeks ago. The Rams, first team in NFL history to enter their bye week with a losing record in consecutive years and make the playoffs. So you already had last year as a reference point of we were already here, already dealing with injuries, already under 500 going into the bye. And both times they had to make in the playoffs. Yes, the reason why they're my HardRight is, and I thought they were a more fitting pick than even what I did with Denver, is they didn't jump off the bandwagon. If you go all the way back to week 3, go back a couple months ago, I said Denver was in danger of becoming what the Cleveland Browns and Detroit Lions were, which is an irrelevant franchise. Denver at the time was 0-2, and I was nervous as hell about the game at Tampa. And I said they could end up 0-4 and onto another losing season and on another quarterback. Bo had no touchdowns up to that point, hadn't looked great in his first 2 games, even though they were against Seattle and Pittsburgh. And I was genuinely nervous, and there was a moment where I was like, I almost jumped off of I'll never not be a fan, but I will jump off of certain seasons of fandom. Like I will go, okay, look, they don't got it this year. All right, whatever. And I will already start looking towards the draft. I haven't looked at a draft board in months. But I never gave up on the Rams because I felt like they were a more fitting pick for my HardRight. Even with all the injuries, even with the record, I was like, look, man, I think they got it. I still think they got it. And the Niners suffering their own injuries. The Niners not playing as well. I think the Seahawks, who I didn't really have a whole lot of belief in anyway. These other teams falling back did definitely help because this would not be the same story if the 49ers were the same 49ers of old. If the 49ers were still that 12-13 win caliber team that could make a Super Bowl, this Rams team would not be in the position they're in. But you have made men at quarterback, head coach. You have made men, great weapons, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, who eventually did become healthy. Cooper's not obviously the player he once was. This defense rounded into form. You end up winning your division. And because at the time you win it, you even got yourself a bye because you got to rest everybody. So it's basically like you're one of the top seeds. You're going into this playoffs. You're well rested. Everybody believes in your head coach. Everybody believes in what they can accomplish here because you've already done it to different degrees. So what McVay did, what Stafford did, what the Rams did, it's truly incredible. And it's why they are my HardRight for the totality of the NFL season. So shout out to them. 2 thumbs up for the Los Angeles Rams. See what they do in the playoffs. We're going to take one last break here before we come to close it back up. This is HardFoul Radio. Be back momentarily.